everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of United City Randomiser. This is the setup episode for season 4. I've been through the summer transfer window. We've made some dealings. I'll tell you about them in a minute. We'll also deal a little bit with how we're going to play this season, what style of tactics and formations we're going to use, and also we're going to talk about the expectation level for what we want to achieve this season. But there's one very important thing that I need to say and talk about just before we get into all of that, and that is in front of us here you can see the league table for last season. We finished in 7th. We were fighting for a Europa League spot all the way through the season. In theory we gained it. It was clarified at the end of our last game that we had qualified for the Europa League in 7th place, but you can see here that our 7th place has not turned the greeny colour of the ones above us to signify European football. Now, it took me a while to figure it out. Leipzig won the domestic cup, but they'd already got a Champions League spot, so that didn't impact us. Mainz didn't get the third Europa League spot, for finishing second in the cup competition. So it took me a while to figure out that actually it was Borussia Mönchengladbach's fault. They finished in 13th in the league, way down from where we were. But unfortunately, they won the Europa League themselves for that particular season, season 3, which meant that they got put into the Champions League as a 5th Champions League side with the others that you can see in the top 4, which meant that the 5th Champions League spot took away a Europa League spot, and therefore United City do not have European football this season. I can't tell you how disappointed I am about that, considering how much of a fight it was to claw on to that 7th position at the end of last season and then have it confirmed that we were going to play Europa League. To then have it taken away was really disappointing. But that's the situation. Can't change it now. We've got another opportunity to continue to build our club. I suggested at the back end of last season quite a bit that I felt that anywhere finishing above 7th, and we were really punching above our weight and weren't quite as good as that, I didn't think. I was not convinced that we wouldn't lose out to Borussia Dortmund on the last couple of games and lose the Europa League spots completely. That didn't quite happen, but we've lost it anyway. So I think, anywhere that we finished in the top 10 last season was a real bonus. We were predicted 11th, we finished 7th. I think that's an amazing achievement. It didn't quite guarantee us eventually the Europa League spot that we were looking for, but that's just the way it is. So for this season, what I'm really aiming for is I want a Europa League spot. We've predicted, let's go and have a look at this season preview. We're predicted 10th spot this year. I think we can do a bit better than that if everybody plays well. So I am looking to get into the top 6 if I can, to guarantee a Europa League spot. But to be honest, if I finish in the top half, I have to be happy with that, because we're still a club that we're building. It's not the finished article yet. So, yeah, that's a brief history about what happened to the Europa League. That tells you a little bit about what we're trying to achieve this season. What have we done in the summer to actually make that happen? Well, we've done quite a bit, and some of it, was very successful. Others not so much. Here's my transfer set up for what I managed to do in the summer, and there'll be some names there that you know, some names that maybe you don't. So we'll go through those in a minute. 2 things to mention straight away. You can see that most of my stuff was done quite early. I'd prepared quite well as to what I wanted to achieve, and then all of a sudden we had to make another signing at this point, and that was specifically because Soren Bartram, who was our left-sided backup player last season. If you remember, we had Dil Rossen in the club last season on loan, and Bertram played second fiddle to him and was perfectly happy doing that. We then lost Dil Rossen because it was a loan and we couldn't get him back. And in the end, what we did was we bought Harry Wilson in for that spot. I'll go through my transfers properly in a minute. And for whatever reason, Bertram then kicked up a right old fuss over the fact that Wilson was going to replace him and it was terrible and the blah-de-blah, even though he'd always had some competition for his place and there was no other competition on the left side in the club at that point. So he just went really, really toxic, and he was throwing threats around about, disrupting the harmony of the whole squad and all sorts. So in the end, I got fed up of it. I tried to sell him, couldn't sell him. He was coming down on the end of his contract anyway in the next season. So in the end, I just got rid of him. He was a bad egg at the end of the day, which is really unfortunate because he'd done so well for us to get us up into the Bundesliga, and then played a decent part in the Bundesliga as well for us. But he turned toxic. So I got rid of him, and that meant that I had to find another replacement, and I hadn't got the money because I'd spent it all at this point, so I had to get a loan player in. So it was one more loan player than I wanted to have this season. But that's the reason why Alphonso Davies has come into the club, and that Bertram is not on this particular transfer out list, but he has actually gone. So the two that we got rid of, that we spoke about at the back end of last season, Sears Leben, his determination was so poor, he wasn't improving. He was an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, whatever, but we'd had him in the club since youth level, but we just couldn't get him to improve on what was pretty decent stats as a sort of 17-year-old, but I just couldn't improve him. He wasn't interested, and he became disgruntled. So he ended up leaving on a free at the end of his contract. Sergio Aguza came in and played second fiddle to Marin in the Metzala role for a lot of last season, and just wasn't impressed by not getting enough games, but he didn't play well enough when he did. So that's why he didn't get the games. So in the end, we bite the bullet, and we got 3.8 up front, 4.7 depending on performance related pay, etc. So he's now left the club. So that was the outgoings. In terms of incoming, we had an initial budget of about 25 million, I think it was, to spend on players, which was pretty good. I upped that when I suggested that I could do better than the mid-table finish that the board wanted me to do. I suggested I could do a top half finish in the league this season, which upped my budget by about another 8 million, up to about 34, 35, somewhere. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then we upped that again slightly just by moving some stuff around in terms of the wage budget, etc., into the transfer budget here and there when some of these deals were going over the line. So in the end, we spent 39 million, which is a really big amount of money. I think we've done quite well in bits. There are a few caveats to that. We talked a little bit last season about wanting a new goalkeeper. We've got one, but he's a backup goalkeeper now. I've gone quite young in terms of who I've brought into the club, which I'll show you in a second. But the goalkeeper is potentially this guy, Richard Kabul. He'll come good, I think, in the long run, but he's probably not there for this season totally. He'll improve as we progress through. Up front, both Barbosa and Batshuayi's contracts were up at their clubs at the end of last season. I tried to get one of them in. I put in bids for both, hoping to get one at least, and then bring a second new player in that position. But unfortunately, through negotiations of contracts, they wanted too much money and other bits and pieces, and we just couldn't secure either of them in the end. So they both went elsewhere. So it meant that I had to do something different that I wanted to do in terms of our loan players. And I've brought these two guys in. Fabio Silva is a youngster at Porto that probably lots of people know. He's on loan. And Lucas Nmecha, I think I'll probably go Nmecha. He's in on loan from Man City for a season. They are downgrades, I think, in terms of this point of the season and this point of their career compared to what both Barbosa and Batshuayi had, specifically Batshuayi in terms of finishing, etc. But what these two guys have is lots of potential. I'm hoping that I might be able to do a sneaky deal along the way and get at least one of these into the club permanently at some point, but we'll see. But yeah, so that's a couple of little caveats on it. So we weren't able to particularly improve our goalkeeper for now, but we will for later, I think, in terms of Kabul. And the two strikers are a little bit of a downgrade, I think. But again, they've got plenty of potential, and I think through this season they'll improve. So let's go through them a little bit. First off to say, welcome back Gotham Goal. He was going down on his contract at Dusseldorf. He'd got another season or so left, I think. We were looking for a German central defender just to keep the German presence in our side a little bit that was fairly young. Was only going to be playing backup, But of course, Goal is a former club captain because we had him on loan for a couple of seasons at the beginning of our save when we were in Bundesliga 2 and then moved up to the Bundesliga, and he did all right for us, So he's come in. I mean, I'd like a little bit more heading, but it's not hugely important compared to what he's got around him. And he's a decent player whilst not being amazing, but he is only here on a rotation position just to sort of cover for defence, and we'll get game time, but it's not our main choice anymore. But welcome back to him. It's great to have another opportunity to have him in the club. The next player is Theodoros Syphilidis. Sounds like a disease, doesn't it? But it's not. Theodoros Syphilidis. Now, he's a German youngster, 17, and this is what I'm saying. We're going quite young. And he's come into the club to play as backup to El Neni in the sort of central midfield support role, which you can see he's perfect for in terms of his liking of playing there. He's got some really good mental stats for such a young guy. He's got some decent physicals in there. Natural fitness might be an issue. We'll see how that progresses a little bit. 14 passing, 11 tackling, we'll get that to up a little bit. First touch is good. I think as a central midfield player at the age of 17, for where we currently are, this is not a bad shout. And hopefully, because his determination is 15 and his decision making and stuff, his teamwork is good, because he's got some good stats there, we can get some of these other stats to improve as time goes by, and we might have a decent player on our hands. So that was the thinking of bringing him in. The positive of that is that that position last season was Douglas Lewis, and he was on loan. We've now bought a player in to secure that spot. We've reduced our loans by a couple compared to what we've had recently. The only unfortunate one was having to bring the last one in that I didn't really want to, but there you go. This is a name that probably quite a few of the you will know. He was an Ajax youngster, Ryan Gravenberch. He's got some really good stats for. We managed to unfortunately not get him in just before he turned 19. I don't think so. He won't become one of those club-based players in terms of the homegrown status, unfortunately, but he was still worth having at the age of 19 because he's got so much more room to improve. You can see that he's got, the potential to be a 5-star player potentially. He's already at a really high level in terms of where our current squad is and what his ability levels are. Look at that pace, it's brilliant. Decisions are good, off the ball's decent, vision's great, technique is great, first touch is great. He's got some really, really great stats in there. I'm really delighted to have him in. He's valued now at 34 million, having joined the club, and we bought him for 13. So you can see that we've got plenty of potential there. We may have to sell some of these players in the future years, possibly, if big money comes in for them. But that's part of the process of bringing the youngsters through. So he's come in to play in the Metzala role. For the first part of the season, he'll battle, I think, a little bit with Marin, because Marin's done quite well. But Gravenberch will eventually win, I'm sure, and will secure that position for his own. So he's in. The next one, Ali Gundogdu. Yes, I did say Dogdu. It's unfortunate, isn't it? Dogdu, but that's his name, so we have to go with it. Ali Gundogdu. He came in from Schalke. We bought him for not far off 9 million. And why did we pay that much? Well, it's all about the potential again. He's a 17-year-old German player, another German, which is great to have in. 17 years old, plays on the right wing. And you can see that whilst he's not the finished article in any way, I think he's got the potential to be really good in the future. He's got decent pace, decent natural fitness. His acceleration is good, so he's got lots of pace on that wing. The flair is good. He's got 16, so he's going to be able to do a lot of stuff. Crossing, dribbling, at this point, they'll need some work, but for 17, that's not bad at all. Free kicks are positive as well for the future. First touch is good. Everywhere that you look that he needs decent stats, he's pretty much got it, other than off the ball maybe, which he could improve on. But who's to say he won't? This is a young guy coming in. He's got good star ratings at this point. He's got the potential to be really good star ratings if we can get him some game time. So he'll come in, play second or third fiddle on the right-hand side for now, but, we'll get game time and we will look to improve this guy as we go. So he's an option on the right of midfield. Next one down is, as we've already mentioned, Harry Wilson. He's coming to play on the left-hand side. He can play left or right, but in this particular save, he's happy to play on the left, which is what we want him to do, in real replacement of Dill Rossen, who we had last season and couldn't get back. So, another well-known name on Football Manager. He's 24 years old in this current season, so he's got a few years in him, but he's got some decent stats, and I think he'll do a decent job for us, especially with his crossing and dribbling ability on that left-hand side. And the great thing is, if occasionally you want him to play on the right-hand side as the inside forward, he can do that as well. So we've got an option to move him around if need be, so that's great with him. This is, of course, the young goalkeeper that I was mentioning. I think we got him before he turned 19. I can't remember, but he's a decent young goalkeeper. It's got some decent stats. The determination of 18 is positive. So I think, there's still some room for improvement here. If we can get him some game time, I think some of these goalkeeping stats will improve. But he's already pretty decent for 19, considering how long goalkeepers can play for. So that's why we bought him in. Henderson was our reserve goalkeeper last season on loan. Again, we took away that loan and bought a player in, so that's positive. We're gradually bringing those loan players down. So yes, that was the last of the purchases. We got a loan purchase for Fabio Silva is the next one, and lots of people will know him, I'm sure. But he is on a loan move for now. Came in from Porto, still young. He's just turned 19. And he's not the best in terms of he hasn't got much heading ability, but you can see already he's improving since we bought him in. He's only had one start for us so far. I'll talk about what we've been doing so far this season because we've played a couple of games, but again, we bought him in primarily because we really struggled in the market for strikers. There weren't too many around that we could attract, that we could afford, etc., that were worth it. So in the end, I again went for potential, hoping to pick up some of these youngsters, even if they're on loan now, at a later point, pick them up because they've been in the club and like the experience. So he's got some decent stats. Pace is pretty good. Agility's good. Composure in front of goals, really great. Anticipating the play is really good. First touch, great. Dribbling's great. Finishing, hopefully will improve, but at the moment it's on a 14. But he's good at passing as well, so he can contribute to what's going on. Off the ball is great. So he's got some really good stats. He hasn't started too brightly for us in the one game that he's had so far, but in the long run, I have no doubt that he'll play a decent part of what we're doing. I did bring him in to be our number one starting striker, but he has got some stiff competition who has already played slightly better than him so far in the couple of games that we've had, and this is Lucas Mecca. Came in from Man City on loan. He's about 22, I believe. Yep, 22. Comes in from Man City. And is, a well-rounded striker in the sense of he's got 14 finishing, 13 heading, his determination's at 14, anticipation is 13, 14 pace, stamina and strength are good, jumping reach is good. There's lots of decent qualities about him being an all-round decent striker whilst not being excellent in too many of those key technical attributes, let's say, but hopefully there's still room for some tweaking of an improvement in him here and there. He's within our club, he's rated at a 4-star, which shows you that, he's going to contribute to what we've got going so far. He's come in, played 2 games against some slightly lesser opposition, let's be fair to him, but scored 3 goals already, which is really positive. As I say, I'll show you those in a minute. But yes, that's Lucas and Mecca, and he and Fabio Silva will be fighting out for that striker berth this season. The next one on the list is another well-known name and another opportunity to get someone in from one of the big guys on loan. He wasn't playing there, so we nabbed him. We've had to pay a bit of a hefty 76k a week for his loan for this year just to get him in, but I think it's worth it. He's got experience and a lot of talent and has played at high level, so hopefully he'll be able to bring all of those qualities to our club. So he's got decent pace and agility and acceleration. His flair is great. His determination is brilliant. Off the ball is great. Passing, all right, but for a wide man, not terrible. Finishing is decent off the wing in terms of the inside forward. Long shots not bad. Dribbling is really good. So, combine the dribbling and the flair and the acceleration and stuff. We've got somebody, I think, that can really contribute on that right-hand side. So I'm really pleased to get him in. What his long-term future will be, I don't know whether we can afford his extra wages and stuff in the long term to get him in permanently. Possibly not. But for now, it's a decent person to have. I'm very happy to have Malcolm. And the last one, as I say, was in response to Bertram kicking up a stink and causing loads and loads of problems, has come in to fight Wilson for that left-hand side berth. And he's decent. Again, maybe people know Alphonso Davies. He's 20 years old. He's Canadian. He's currently at Bayern Munich, so that means he won't be able to play against them this season, I suspect. I can't remember whether that was a key factor or not in the negotiations, but I suspect that's probably true. But, he's going to improve, I think, by playing regularly for us over the next season. He's got decent stamina and pace and acceleration again. Flair is good. Determination's not bad. Dribbling's great. Crossing, not too bad. So he can play on that wide left-hand side as a winger, attacking winger. So I think he's going to be another brilliant option for us. So those are the transfers that we bought in. We talked about the ones that we've taken out. I'll go to the squad page just briefly and show you that pretty much everybody else that you know of is here. The likes of Greitbust and Cruiser and Klunter and Omaru and El Neni and Lucas Silva and Tiru and Kempf, Harthers and Heiss. Marin Burnich, he's in his last year of his current contract, I think, at Dortmund, and it looks like it's ticking down. I'm hoping that at the end of the season we'll be able to bring him in permanently, because he's been a real good servant for us on the couple of years that we've had him on loan. You can see the new guys there. Hahn is still around on that right hand side. He'll fight for an opportunity. And then the youngster Eric R, who's coming on. We'll go in and have a look at him. He's not, setting the world alight, but he's got decent finishing and decent determination and a bit of pace about him. Balance is good. So, he's worth having around as a youngster coming through our setup and as a young German player. So that's our squad for the certainly up until January. We have literally no money left and probably no real way of getting more in. So I suspect this will probably have to do all the way through the season. Let's go and have a look at what we've achieved so far in the league. We've played 2 games where others have played 3 around us, and we've got 2 decent wins so far. Who were the wins against? Well, we beat Stuttgart and we beat Nürnberg. So, decent opposition whilst not being totally spectacular, but 2-0 wins. Graven Birch has been the star, as we can see. El Neni and Mecca got a couple of goals as well. We also went through in the cup competition quite comfortably against Glibben, where our second string side played in that game and got a 4-0 win. You can see we did all right in terms of the friendlies before the season. A couple of odd results, but they were against really hard opposition. We didn't make it easy for ourselves this year. Excuse me. My friendlies were tough in terms of how they'd been brought about. So the likes of Fenerbahce and Tottenham and Lyon were all really hard games, and we did all right in some of them. It was a decent friendly section for getting match fitness up. So we've talked about what we've currently done. We've talked about what we've done transfer-wise. We've talked about what our potential is in the league this season. So there's one other thing to talk about, and that's how we're going to play this season. I've made some changes there as well. That at the back end of last season, the criticism was that we always stuck rigidly to the formation, even though we were playing different structures of play in it and styles of play. We always kept to the formation, and some weren't happy about that. So I'll do my best to show you what we're currently thinking about for this coming season. So we will maintain this particular shape and system on the controlled possession. It's working for us as we start the season, and it worked for us for quite a lot of last season as a good basic tactic to have as at the start of games when we feel like we're good for a win potentially, and just want to control the game. So one of the other options for that is that when we go down, or when we're playing slightly weaker opposition that we want to really stamp our authority on, what we're going to do is we're going to play a new formation and a new structure of play, and we're going to play the Gegenpress. We are in Germany after all, and that's, seems to be where this sort of style of play originated from. It's an interesting formation, but basically it's the 4-2-3-1 with just slight differences here and there, just to try and help out in terms of finding some space for some players, etc. And I don't know, it's just a bit more interesting than just the flat 4-2-3-1. But you can see how hopefully that will work. These 4 players and El Neni potentially really pushing to try and get that ball back. Silva maybe holding his position a little bit more just in case they break through those lines and start to approach our defence. So yeah, hopefully that'll work. If it doesn't, we'll change it. Of course we will, but that's what I'd like to play when we know that we've got a decent shout of dominating the game, or when we're trying to get back into the game. I'll play this type of structure of formation and tactic on the positive, and lots of charging for the ball, etc. So that's the second of our tactics, and the third is again slightly different than what we've played before, and it's this tactic, and it will be on the counter attack. So we'll play 2 holding midfielders, sort of. We've got 1 anchor man in Lucas Silva or Burnich really holding that, but this is an interesting role, the Segunda Volante. If I butcher those pronunciations, I apologise. But the thing I like about this is when we've got the ball back, the Segunda Volante will get further forward and frequently look to arrive late in the opposition penalty area. So that's what I'm really hoping for. We'll let this particular player, whether it's Gravenberch or Marin, play as the roaming playmaker a bit, go and find some pockets of space, help the ball up the pitch a bit, and hopefully get involved on the edge of the area. But El Neni hopefully will then run through as well and support the play as we counter attack. And so hopefully that will work. If it doesn't, again, we'll figure it out. But it's a different formation. I've got 3 different formations in terms of they're all based around the 4-3-3 really, but they work differently. Hopefully that's enough for people to think that we're actually just not so rigid and structured, which was one of our criticisms. So those are the 3 styles of play and the 3 different formations that we're going to start out with. If for any reason they don't work, we'll look to change them as the season goes on. And I think that's about it. It's a bit of a rambly episode. As I say, it's the setup episode for season 4. That will start next episode when we come back and we play our first game of this particular save. And it's against Bayer Leverkusen, who have obviously been quite high up at times in finishing, and may well do again. So that will be the game next time. We'll come back in and play that next episode. But for now, that's about all I can show you. I hope it was interesting to see where we are. Sorry it's a bit rambly. But yeah, let's get into season 4 and see what we can achieve. Hopefully that top 7-6 finish and getting a definite Europa League spot will be a real amazing thing if we can achieve it. If we finish somewhere 7th to 9th, okay, fair enough. But that'll do it for now. Cheers for hanging out. I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks very much for watching this episode of the United City Randomiser save. If you enjoyed the video, then why not click on the like button, as that would really help me. If you think you know anyone who would really enjoy my Football Manager content, then feel free to share this with them. But most importantly, if you would like to join my United City here on YouTube, then hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with my video releases. If you have anything you want to say about the United City save or the channel itself, then feel free to leave a comment below, but please try and be nice with each other. That'll do for today, so until next time, stay happy and healthy, and I will see you soon.